Earlier, a pair of old farts were complaining to a random merchant about a faceless version of Sukuna they'd heard stories about in town. But unfortunately for them, the man revealed himself to be the devil they were speaking about. Koga showed up and saved them by sending the monster flying with a punch. The old geezers thanked him for his heroism and asked what they could do in return. So he asked for directions to a place called Uraji Inn. Koga was super excited to visit the inn because it not only had a rent that was cheap enough for a bum like him to afford. They tried to warn him that all the spirit monsters from Bleach were roaming around that area. But Koga already knew the only ghost haunting the place was a student who died in the inn's bath some decades ago, which he planned to exorcise with his fists. Koga followed the directions that the old-timers gave and eventually arrived at the Uraji Inn. He knew he stank more than a sewer rat, so he immediately rushed into the hot springs area, where he said he was excited to have his first proper bath in years. As Koga enjoyed the bath, the ghost, which was a girl named Yuna, showed up and removed her towel to reveal some massive plots as she stepped inside the opposite bath. Koga's virgin senses started tingling, so he turned around to face the ghost and was shocked to see all her feminine features, causing him to lose all composure. Yuna was so startled by this that she floated out of her bath, and Koga was shocked by this ability of hers, which made Yuna realize that he could see her. Yuna was not only embarrassed but also mad that an ugly loser had seen her without her plot armor, so she used her poltergeist powers to beat him up. A few hours later, Koga woke up on a cute loli's lap and was stunned when the pipsqueak named Nakai introduced herself as the innkeeper. He was even more shocked when a massive girl named Nanko showed up and got chatty with him. Unfortunately, their flirting was cut short when someone attempted to behead Koga with a kunai. Sajiri, the girl responsible for the attack, threatened to stick a kunai up Koga's chocolate starfish if he tried to do anything weird at the inn. She started yelling at Nanko for dressing like an OnlyFans model in front of a man before a girl named Yaya woke up from the nap she was taking on Koga's lap and snacked on his face, which made him jump off of her. When Koga told the girls that he was in room 4, they said things were about to get even crazier for him. Koga got to his room later that night, where he was shocked to see Yuna's dump truck was sticking out of the wall.
You don't find that suspicious?
He tried to drag her out from the walls, but his mission failed successfully when her bumpers landed firmly on his face and knocked him out. When Koga regained consciousness, Yuna apologized, introduced herself, and expressed how happy she was that he could see her properly, unlike everyone else. Koga regretted the fact that he was busy watching Demon Slayer instead of mastering non-punching exorcism techniques, but Yuna assured him that she wouldn't hurt him because she was a friendly ghost. He was surprised about the fact that Yuna was setting up a futon next to his own, so she told him that she was bound to that room as a ghost, meaning they had no choice but to live together in that shared space. Yuna couldn't sleep, so she asked Koga why he came to the inn, and this made him narrate his tragic past to her. When Koga was a kid, spirits repeatedly possessed him, and this made his family dump him like a constantly overheating 2007 iPhone with a home button.
Are you sure about that?
After a weird day trade spirit possessed him, he ended up broke and homeless, so he decided to become the apprentice of a medium and started his journey as a spirit hunter. He explained that according to his master, a spirit would turn evil if it stuck around for long due to lingering regrets, so he wanted to help her ascend as soon as possible. All of a sudden, a rat popped out, which scared Yuna so much that her poltergeist powers activated and caused a chaotic mess, which Koga was unfortunately a victim of. The next morning, Koga finally decided to become useful, so he got a part-time job, but things got crazy when he spotted a strange monk named Sekken outside of the inn scoping Yuna. Koga rushed into the building and spotted Sekken using his powers to try to force her ascension, but instead of jumping in to rescue her, he wondered if letting Sekken have his way was the right choice since she'd be cooked if she remained in the real world for long. However, Yuna said she wanted to stay in the world a while longer and learn more about Koga, so the young psychic swooped in and stopped Sekken from sending her to the spirits. Sekken tried to land several attacks on Koga, but Koga had that dog in him, so he dodged all of Sekken's attacks and knocked his teeth out with a single spirit punch. Koga promised that he'd help Yuna resolve her lingering regret and make her happy, which made tears of joy stream down her face. Their sweet moment was interrupted when Sekken slightly regained consciousness, spooking Koga to the point where he accidentally grabbed one of Yuna's cushions, which led to Koga getting beat up by the girls. Later that night, Yuna caused even more problems for Koga, because he literally woke up suspended 50 feet in the air, while the clumsy ghost was napping on top of him. Koga got rattled when Yuna wished him a good night before her poltergeist ability deactivated, and they both fell into the river. The next morning, Yuna apologized to Koga while walking to the dining room with him, where Sajiri and Nanko were already seated and having breakfast. They talked about everything that happened the previous day, and when Koga asked if all the girls at the inns were ghosts, Nanko replied by flashing him her plots to convince him some live-action stunts could be performed. However, Koga's brain was smaller than his thumb, so he still couldn't get her point. Nanko went ahead to mount his head on her milk cannons, but he jumped off when he realized that she was drunk. This got Sajiri mad, making her threaten to cut off Koga's family jewels, and they all played around for a bit before Koga revealed his intention of helping Yuna ascend to heaven. The big reveal made everyone tense up a bit, and Nakai served breakfast, while threatening to skin Koba alive if he didn't pay for the meals at the end of the month.
Shut up and take my money!
This made Koba soil himself in fear, causing Nanko to inform him that Nakai was the oldest at the inn despite her size. Yaya, who had been napping under the table, woke up and Koga was shocked to see some cat-like features on her body. Sajiri tried to clap Koga once again, but the miserable psychic escaped and asked the girls what they all were. Nakai tried to reintroduce herself, but unfortunately they were interrupted by a pack of silly-looking monks called the Guden clan led by Second, who were gathered outside the inn. Second's men didn't want to hurt the girls, but Second knew they were all good-for-nothing scumbags, so he promised to let them play out their degenerate dreams with the girls once they were captured. Now motivated, the monks charged at them, but Sajiri pulled some insane ninja techniques that pulverized them, while Yuna explained to Koga that she was a ranked ninja that slayed demons. Meanwhile, Nanko showed off her gorilla strength by using one of the monks as a bowling ball to knock a whole bunch of them out, and Yuma introduced her as an ogre that gets stronger the more she drinks. Yena also pulled up on top of a giant cat that tossed around some of Second's men. Yuna explained that a cat god had possessed Yaya. Second saw that his men had been brutally clapped and wanted to take matters into his own hands, but Nakai showed up and used her spirit powers to make all the monks simultaneously receive good news that made them all retreat. Yuna told Koga that Nakai was a protective household deity that manipulates luck, and Koga tried to talk her into using her powers to fulfill his virgin fantasies. But the girls explained that her power could use up all his life's worth of luck in one shot. The girls then properly welcomed Koba to their inn, but after all the Hotel Transylvania drama he'd seen, he was more scared than pleased to be living with them. That night, Koga woke up and was thankful not to be in midair this time, but ended up in a more bizarre position which made Yuna scream in embarrassment and dunk him in the river as usual. While Yuna apologized to him the next morning, they stumbled onto a cat which Koga picked up and tried petting. Unfortunately, the cat turned into Yaya, who was wearing no armor at all. She then accused him of doing weird things to her, which made Sajiri beat him into a pulp. A bit later, Nakai got a petition to evict Koga from the inn, so she called everyone together for a meeting and decided that they should settle things in a one-game match, where the loser has to do what the winner says. The game they selected was a doubles ping-pong match, where the team of Yuna and Koga would go head-to-head against Sajiri and Yaya. Yaya served by blasting the ball with more speed and power than a bullet, but Koga returned it, which caused Sajiri to accuse him of lying about his hatred for ping-pong. Koga explained that he was once possessed by a ping-pong coach that yelled just as much as Dragon Ball characters, who grilled him so hard that he became a ping-pong pro despite hating the sport. They all used their spirit abilities to the fullest and had a competitive match, but Team Koga managed to steal the win after Yuna flashed in her undergarments and used her poltergeist to send the opposing team's ball out of the court. However, the duo couldn't even celebrate the win in peace, because Yuna's powers went bonkers and threw everyone into the river. Later on during a conversation, Sajiri promised Koga that she wouldn't try to send him packing anymore, but threatened to slash him to pieces if he moved mad or pull any baby oil moves with the ladies. Koga agreed, but unfortunately, this pact didn't last for long because he slipped on the ping-pong ball and fell on top of Sajiri, and Yaya with his hands grabbing their ignition bags, and of course they got so pissed that they tried beating the degenerate out of him. Episode 3, the next morning. Yuna woke up with very little armor on as usual, but was surprised when she found out that Koga wasn't beside her this time. She searched the entire inn for Koga, causing Nakai to inform her that he'd left for his high school entrance ceremony. Koga was determined to have as much fun as possible in high school because he had to face a lot of bizarre spirit possessions in elementary school and do some crazy psychic training in middle school. He was surprised when he got to school and saw Yuna, who said she was there to congratulate him on his enrollment. Later in class, one of Koga's classmates named Sato introduced himself to Koga and told him about a girl named Chizaki, who was so cute that she got multiple offers to become a model, which she refused. Things went sideways when Koga spotted Yuna lifting Chizaki's skirt, and when he tried to stop her, the whole class, including Chizaki, accused him of being a filthy scumbag.
What did I do?
Because they couldn't see the actual culprit. Afterwards, Yuna apologized and explained to Koga that she was only studying the uniform so she could transform her clothes into it using one of her ghostly abilities. Yuna tried performing the transformation, so instead of manifesting the uniform, all of Yuna's current armor vanished into thin air. Koga tried to calm her down by reminding her that nobody in class could see her, but Yuna was too much of a hothead to think rationally, so she used her poltergeist powers on the entire class. The teacher showed up and saw the class in that awkward situation, which made him scold them. But they were all convinced that their little misfortune was all Koga's doing. At that point, Koga was tired of all the slander, so during class introductions, he introduced himself as a spirit medium and explained that the earlier events were caused by Yuna the ghost. Everyone in class saw him as a one-egg stand-up comedian, using them for practice, but Chisaki was intrigued by his words, so she met up with him after school. Koga apologized for the skirt incident during class. Then she told him about some supernatural occurrences she'd been noticing in her home, so Koga agreed to help her investigate the matter. He asked to be taken to her home, but Chisaki hesitated because she knew he was a lonely creep, but eventually she decided to follow through with their plans. Before long, they got to Chisaki's room, where she showed Koga some dolls that were floating around a while ago. Koga tried to exorcise them using Satama's ultimate moves, but Chisaki stopped him with a punch of her own and called him a stupid musclehead for treating her dolls like punching bags. The fact that no spirits left the dolls after he punched them made Koga realize that a seal was being used to control the dolls remotely. He asked Yuna to look inside the dolls to find seals, but Chisaki interrupted them by asking who Yuna was, causing Koga to introduce her as a nice ghost. Yuna tried getting into one of the dolls to investigate, but it suddenly gave her the stink eye, which got her so startled that her poltergeist powers activated and threw Koga into a weird position with Chisaki. This angered Chisaki so much that she chased Koga from her home and accused him of being a phony who was parading as a psychic, so he could become the prince of plot armor removal. That evening, Chisaki felt bad about how things went down with Koga, but suddenly her dolls came to life and started attacking her before Koga suddenly jumped in and punched them all away. Koga promised her that he'd pummel the culprit hard when he found him and used one of the possessed dolls to track him down. Following the plan Koga devised after being thrown out earlier, Yuna followed the spirit line drawn from the doll to find the culprit, while Koga carried Chisaki to the other end as well. They found a masked man on a street who turned out to be the culprit, and she immediately cast a spell which created a large monster to attack them. This was no problem for the resident one-punch virgin, as Koga annihilated the monster with a single spirit punch and threatened to flatten the culprit's face as well if she didn't explain herself. The culprit was scared for her life, so she transformed into a baby raccoon-like demi-human and cried while begging them to forgive her. She introduced herself as Koyuzu, a little supernatural raccoon who was living on her own in an abandoned temple. Koyuzu explained that she was even more lonely and miserable than Koga until she met Chisaki and got so envious of her oversized melons that she used dolls to stalk and attack her. The next day, Koga walked to school with Yuna escorting him, and he asked how she was able to walk with him to school despite being bound to the inn. Yuna explained that after years of personal ghost training, she'd reached a point where she was only bound to the inn when she sleeps. They ran into Chisaki, who thanked them for helping her the previous day and asked about Koyuzu. Koga told her that Koyuzu was now in her own personal paradise, as she now stayed at the Uraji Inn, where she could play with the girls' cannons all day. Chisaki promised to pay her a visit and gave Koga some cookies, which made him extremely happy, because he was too broke to afford such fancy snacks on his own.
You're broke!
After Chisaki left, Yuna decided to head back to the inn because she didn't want to cause problems for Koga at school like before, but Koga said he didn't mind since she ended up helping him gain a new friend in Chisaki. Koga tried the cookies and realized they tasted good, so he shared them with Yuna, who enjoyed them as well. One particular evening, a worm-like monster was eating an old guy's hair in the street when Sajiri showed up and destroyed it by spamming kunai attacks. She updated her handler, named Aurora, about the hair eater's defeat and asked her what the next mission was, but Aurora changed the subject by asking about Koga. It turned out the girls belonged to an elite ninja group that hunted evil yokai called the Chuma Ninja Army. The next morning, Koga couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Sajiri at school. Sato showed up and told Koga about how he's known Sajiri since middle school, where she was glazed by every guy for being beautiful as well as a top player in sports and academics. He said her hate for men eventually made all the boys terrified of her, and Yuna said she'd been going to an all-girls school prior. Their little chat was soon cut short when Sajiri met up with them and asked to talk to Koga on the rooftop, and there, she asked Koga to help her ninja clan by participating in a mission. She said the job was to find an evil spirit, and claimed that the spirit was so dangerous that they even needed a bit of help from Yuna as well. Later that evening, Koga arrived at their meeting spot where he spotted her getting bothered by some Nimrods around the corner. Before he could jump in to save her, she scared them off with a bit of ninja violence. Afterwards, Sajiri and Koga met up, and she gave him a special costume to change into, which he did. Sajiri explained that the park had been closed down after reports of a black fog attacking the people in the area. So she and the other Naruto wannabes at Chuma village did a spirit vision and found out that it was the work of a terrifying yokai. She added that the victims were usually couples, which explained why she asked for his help to lure it out. She also revealed that the yokai had a unique attack pattern whereby it ate all of the victims' clothes, leaving them in a terrified state. Koga was spooked by this, so he asked if the clothes she gave him had any magical barrier that could protect him from the yokai's power. Sajiri, however, dropped a bummer by revealing that they were regular clothes, and Koga realized that they were cooked. After strolling for hours without any sign of the sus yokai, Koga guessed that it probably sensed her Terminator aura and ran off. Sajiri made it clear that if the monster didn't show up, it meant that it didn't think she was girly enough despite her efforts to look like a bootleg Sabrina Carpenter. So she asked Koga if he had any ideas that could prevent the mission from failing. Koga suggested that they walk arm in arm to trick the monster into thinking they were bedroom buddies and attack them. So Sajiri reluctantly agreed. The sus yokai then pulled up and covered the area with its signature black fog, which Sajiri jumped away from while telling Koga to find its main body. The black fog monster managed to melt away pieces of their clothes with its attacks, so Koga used a punch that had as much wind power to disperse the fog and expose the spider-like yokai that was terrorizing them. The spider yokai tried once again to attack them, but Sajiri pulled off her ultimate ninja move, chopping it into a million pieces with her kunai before falling into Koga's arms. But when she saw how armorless she was, she went bonkers and pierced a hole through Koga's head. After they put on their regular clothing, Sajiri thanked Koga for his help, so he rizzed her up by saying she looked cute in her city girl outfit, which made her face glow bright red as they went back home to the inn. A couple of days later, Koga saw Yaya sleeping with her cat god on top of the inn's roof and tried waking her up. When she got up and started searching for food, she slipped and fell off the roof. Her cat god had already made the save. During breakfast, the girls explained to Koga that cat gods give their hosts several crazy powers and protects them from harm, just like a stand-in JoJo. Nakai changed the subject by informing them that she'd be leaving the next day for an annual trip with the Hot Spring Association, so they agreed to split the inn duties amongst themselves while she's away. The next day, Nakai went on her trip after saying her goodbyes, and things immediately got out of hand as Yaya served everyone cat food as breakfast. Things got even more crazy when Nanko served potato chips and alcohol for dinner, and it was at this point that they all realized that they were cooked. However, the next morning, everyone was amazed to see a tasty-looking dish on the table which Yuna said was her doing. Unfortunately, the looks didn't match the taste. Sajiri boldly declared that she was the best chef around, but proceeded to cook a meal that looked like something straight out of a gothic horror movie using wild plants from her ninja school. Their food horrors were seemingly put to an end when the girls were served some perfectly grilled salmon. When the girls tasted it, it felt like they'd all ascended to the pearly gates, so Koga revealed that he was the resident Gordon Ramsay who made the dish. As an explanation, he narrated how he was once possessed by a chef who ended up passing on his ultimate grilling technique to him before dying. Nakai returned home and witnessed the girls celebrating Koga as a hero while Yaya stared at him in a strange way. The next day, Yaya followed Koga everywhere he went but wouldn't say what she wanted, including the bathroom where she offered to wash his back, but he accidentally turned on the shower which sprayed water on her. She realized that Koga could see through her towel, so she got embarrassed and cut him up with her claws. A bit later, she tended to Koga's injuries and apologized, while Yumin explained to him that Yaya reacted that way because she didn't like hot water. Koga asked why Yaya had been following him, but Yaya still refused to say what her deal was, so Yuna brought up how she enjoyed his grilled fish. Being a desperate simp, Koga offered to let Yaya taste it again, and while he prepared the fish, Sajiri told him about how Yaya liked to distance herself from people. Later that evening, Yaya was spending some time on the roof where Koga joined her with the grilled fish. She'd asked him not to put salt in the food because she intended to share it with her cat god, who didn't like salt. The cat god enjoyed Koga's barbecue, so Yaya thanked, and they chilled on the rooftop all through the night. Yaya was now fully affected by Koga's ultimate riz, so even after that night, she kept following him around to form a stronger bond with him. Episode 5. Several days later, Chizaki pestered Koga with questions about Yuna, asking about her height, looks, and even her age. Before Koga could answer, she realized that Yuna was in class with them, so she asked to take a photo with her. but Yuna politely turned down her offer and explained that taking pictures was really hard for her. Koga passed the message to Chisaki, which made her extremely sad, but she decided that it would be best for her to talk to Yuna directly and thank her for her help in dealing with the Koyuzu situation. Koga said that it would be complicated because she'd have to go through 10 years of intense training in order to gain the ability to talk to ghosts, but Chisaki declined because she valued her life. Following Koga's new idea, Yuna greeted Chisaki by writing a book, and this made both girls excited because they finally found a way to do some girl talk. A while later during class, Koga realized that Chisaki didn't care at all about the teacher's ramblings because she'd become obsessed with chatting with her new best friend, Yuna. Yuna explained to Chisaki about how she and Koga were roommates at the Uraji Inn, causing Chisaki to ask if they were dating. Yuna screamed and stuttered, as she denied all claims of being a romantic partner to a virgin scum like Koga. But Chisaki, whose mind was already deep in the gutter, argued that the reverse was the case. When their teacher noticed Chisaki playing around during class, he assigned her to do cleanup after school as punishment. Hours later, Yuna accompanied Chisaki to the social studies materials room at school and aided her in finishing the extra work which the teacher gave her. Chisaki thanked her for her help, and Yuna responded, saying that was okay because she caused the problem in the first place. Yuna confessed that she got excited because Chisaki was the first person she ever had a girl talk with, and Chisaki decided to give her a chance to examine her uniform in return for her help with the work. Chisaki felt a bit tipsy after realizing that Yuna was getting handsy with her, but eventually Yuna took off Chisaki's body armor to do some deeper examination, making her nearly explode with embarrassment. Afterwards, Yuna returned her uniform, and Chisaki said it was sad that she'd never seen Yuna. So Yuna put Chisaki's hand on her face while using powers to make it so that Chisaki could feel her. Chisaki glazed all of Yuna's bodily figures and realized that the ghost girl was an elite baddie. But when Koga called her name, she tripped and fell on top of Yuna. Koga walked into the room and saw the two girls in an awkward position, so the girls threw some books at him. The three of them later met on the roof, where Yuna showed off her school uniform and thanked Chisaki for her help. Chisaki asked Yuna why she didn't like getting her photo taken, so she explained that her appearance in photos looked like a deformed zombie, which scared everyone who saw it. Chisaki stared at a childhood photo with her parents and rambled on about how pictures made moments feel special, so Yuna agreed to take a photo with her. Koga helped take a picture of the two besties, and Chisaki didn't soil herself at the sight of Yuna's monstrous haze, but rather used some Snapchat filters to make Yuna look beautiful. Yuna saw herself looking cute in a picture for the first time, and this made her so happy that she wrote the word thank you on Chisaki's palm. A while later, Koga and Yuna arrived at the inn, where they were greeted by Nanko. Koga asked why Nanko was always at the inn like a useless NEET. A girl named Ru showed up to meet Nanko. Koga's pickle brain was about to have a meltdown, so Ri explained that Nanko was a manga artist, and that she was her chief editor. Nanko eventually took Koga to her room, and he instantly noticed that it was filled to the brim with books and alcohol. Rui explained that Nanko's assistant was at the hospital recovering from an accident, and pointed out that her deadline was 7 a.m. the next morning. So he agreed to help Nanko out, and Rui as well decided to join in on the effort. Koga was helping her out that night when he noticed that Nanko was unusually locked in and grumpy. So Rui explained that Nanko was in her own version of the zone, which usually gets their work done in time. Rui noticed that Koga was good at drawing manga and asked him about it. So Koga explained that he was once possessed by a mangaka spirit. Soon, all the late-night caffeine started loosening some screws in Nanko's brain, so she began to complain about one of her characters. Rui then stopped Koga from interfering and explained that Nanko channels her frustrations into her manuscripts when she remembers how sad reality is. Later that night, Nanko had several snacks and sleeping meds, but she was still on the verge of losing her mind. So Rui asked what the problem was, to which she responded that she was stuck in an entanglement scene because she sucked at making rough sketches, and Nanko decided to take reference photos with Koga's help. She and Koga dressed up as the high school kids from her manga, and she made Koga hold her in sus ways to mirror her characters while Rui took photos. When she looked at the first pair of photos, Nanko was disappointed and claimed that Koga didn't get more wild with her. For the next photo, she tried getting him to put his hand where the sun doesn't shine, and after a bit of motivation, Koga decided to do it right. But even after getting the shot, she still made him reenact one of the dark web classics with her. Koga wondered if his helpless virgin days were coming to an end, but his torment didn't end there, as Rue suggested for him to cross-dress as a high school girl. By 12 a.m., Rue and Nanko realized they were all goofballs who'd been fooling around instead of making progress with their manga. Sometime later, Koga made Nanko a cup of coffee and noticed Ru was already asleep, so he asked if he could wake her. Nanko refused and explained that Ru's work was meant to begin after the manuscript was ready, meaning that she sacrificed her free time to help her to beat the deadline. Koga noticed that Nanko hadn't had a drop of alcohol since she started drawing, so he asked why she loved drawing manga. Nanko narrated how she used to be a yokai hunter like Sajiri, but got badly hurt one day, so she decided to throw that life away and do the things that made her happy. After going through several jobs, she stuck to manga drawing because she loved it and wanted to be as great as Oda, but wondered if she was just a coward who left the battlefield. By the next morning, Nanko was done with the manuscript, so retook it and rushed away. While Nanko celebrated by having some drinks with Koga, it didn't take long for her to get wasted and stuff the virgin boy's face in her cushions again. Nakai and the girls stopped by and saw the scene, but before Sajiri could decapitate Koga, Yuna stopped her and explained that Nanko was drunk again. A few days later at the inn, Nakai showed off her cooking skills and made a feast for breakfast, which everyone enjoyed. Afterwards, she was cleaning the yard when Koga informed her that he'd be working late that evening, so she sent him off before putting on her school uniform and heading to school. On her way to school, Nakai saw Koga and Yuna rushing back to the inn to get something they forgot, and she had the intention of hiding her school girl life from them, so she used her luck manipulation powers to send a boar their way. Koga tried to jump over it, but ended up getting piggybacked away as Nakai apologized to them in secret. Nakai was relieved that they didn't see her in a schoolgirl getup, but when she tried to resume her journey, she accidentally stepped on a cat's tail, which made the feline go into a frenzy of rage. The cat started chasing her, so she realized that the weird drama was caused by the side effect of her ability, which brings random forms of bad luck upon her after she uses it. She eventually made it to her middle school. When she got into class, she greeted the two MP-looking friends of hers who were talking about some cringe telenovelas. Despite how Nakai criticized modern girls for being obsessed with stupid teen romance stuff, she immediately joined their conversation and fawned about some chat in their show named June. They babbled on about their dumb soap opera, and Nakai loved every minute of it, but thought about how she needed to keep her geek life a secret from the other in-residents so she wouldn't lose her respect. Nakai joined the students in class, did sports, art, as well as every other school stuff, and later met with the principal of the school, who asked if she was enjoying her school life. Apparently he knew her secret, and they discussed how she used to be a whiny pea-brained brat when she was little. Nakai said she was grateful to be in his school, so he told her to enjoy her dream of being a school girl despite being someone with as much power as a Dragon Ball character. After school, she and her two friends went to get some food at a canteen, but their mealtime was interrupted by some punks who invited them to go karaoke. When she refused, one of the punks held her friend back, so Nakai called them a bunch of stupid gooners. Her friend joined in and said they looked like worthless thugs, so the punk got angry and kicked away her meal. Nakai used her luck powers to retrieve her food, but the punks still tried forcing the girls to follow them, so Nakai used her luck manipulation again to bring bad luck upon them. Nakai said she didn't know what form the misfortune would take, but she assured the punks that they were about to be messed up. All of a sudden, Koga made a heroic entrance, so Nakai tried to hide herself as he clapped the punks so badly they had no choice but to run with their tail between their legs. Nakai realized that Koga's sudden arrival was both the punk's misfortune and her bad luck side effect, because she was now at risk of having her cover blown. Luckily, before Koga could turn her way, her friends stole his attention as they thanked him for saving them. She heaved a sigh of relief when he ran off without seeing her, and she fawned about Koga's heroic aura for several minutes before deciding to change back to her usual self. Koga got to the inn that evening where he was greeted by Nakai, who was now dressed in her usual maid outfit, and she happily offered him a hot dinner and a bath. Some days later, Yuna and Koga went to a place called Unawal, which was a place like Disneyland that Yuna was excited to visit. Nakai had apparently handed them some tickets to the resort a few days earlier as a way of helping Koga to resolve Yuna's lingering regrets. Like a typical dumb virgin, Koga was flustered because of the fact that they were on a date. However, when Yuna said she had always wanted to be on a lovely date, he decided to go all out with it because it could help resolve Yuna's regrets and help her finally ascend. The receptionist at Unawal didn't understand why they gave her 2 tickets because she could only see Koga, and when he tried explaining the situation, everyone around called him a deranged mental patient. They later made it into the pool area where some colorful swimsuits caught Yuna's eyes. She imitated a couple nearby by asking Koga to pick a swimsuit for her, but the doofus randomly picked one with extremely thin fabric. Yuna couldn't believe his audacity but decided to put it on anyway. Yet when he admired her plots, she got embarrassed and took it off. Later on, Yuna put on a less bold swimsuit and showed it off to Koga, who said she looked great in it. Koga still didn't know jack about dates, so when he asked Yuna what to do, she suggested getting some couple-themed snacks and a couple's photo. He tried severally to get meals reserved for couples, but ended up getting rejected and looked like a miserable loser every single time. Since the meal plan didn't work, Yuna went into the water slide, where the water pressure cut off her plot armor just before Koga jumped in to save her. They ended up getting in a sus position, which caused Yuna's poltergeist to activate underwater and create a massive splash. Some hours later, Koga woke up in a hotel room, and Yuna told him that he was carried to the room by the resort's staff. He felt as useless as a wet rag. When Yuna saw that he was feeling grumpy, she suggested that they take a bath together in the hot springs. Together they enjoyed the warmth of the water, and Koga felt slightly uneasy. So Yuna thanked him for taking her on the date. She told him not to bother himself too much with her ascension problems, and proposed to return to the resort with him for a second date sometime later. However, she stipulated that Koga had to be himself for their next date, and not some wanted Giga Chad, so Koga accepted, but realized that the thought of Yuna ascending made him sad. Somewhere else in town, a guy named Jen, who looked like a Saiyan hobo, was asked by some girls to take a photo of them. But the idiot watched too many Netflix romance shows, so he thought the girls were flirting with him. He picked them up and boldly claimed that he'd add them to his collection of concubines. But his guard named Oboro reset his glitching brain with a smack and told him to stop acting like a spoiled brat. She said the two girls he was trying to run away with were normal girls that weren't hot enough to be his wives, and Jen confirmed that he was after a rare species of baddies that had both beauty and strong spiritual powers. The next day, everyone at the inn had breakfast as usual, and afterwards, the girls went to comfort Yuna, who was feeling bad about throwing Koga into the river the previous night. Yuna said she was worried that she hadn't changed, but Yaev assured her that she'd changed ever since Koga came to live with them. Yuna went back to the dining area and got Koga some soy sauce before accompanying Koyuzu on her first errand. Meanwhile, Jen and Oboro were having a walk after taking a refreshing bath at the Yukamori hot springs. And when Oboro talked about finding a fitting wife for Jen, she caught him trying to pick up a random hottie and knocked him back to his senses once again. Jen spotted Yuna and Koyuzu heading back to the inn, and instantly fell in love with Yuna. So he approached them and used as much riz as possible to try to bag her. After they exchanged introductions, he got a bit too close to her, so she flung him into the river using her poltergeist powers. Yuna's move, unfortunately, had an opposite effect on him. Jen was amazed by her spiritual power and showed off a bit of his own overwhelming spiritual aura by using his powers to instantly dry himself. He decided to take Yuna as a bride, and despite her negative response, he was dead set on snatching her by any means necessary. Yuna went back to Planet and tried tossing him away using her poltergeist ability again, but Jen didn't budge. Koyuzu told Jen that Yuna was the personal babymaker of Koga, and that they usually had intense workout sessions at night, but that only got Jen angry as he still wanted Yuna to come to his castle with him. Koyuzu threw one of her leaves to stop him. Oboro sliced it in half. Oboro tried to one-shot Koyuzu with a chop, but Yuna stopped her at the last second and surrendered herself to them so they would leave her friends alone. Jen then opened a portal to his castle and started walking into it, and while Koyuzu claimed Koga would save Yuna, Jen didn't care because he was confident that he'd beat Koga up like cannon fodder. Oboro revealed that her master, Jen, was an overpowered entity called a Black Dragon God, implying that no human could ever stand a chance at beating him. That evening, Koga and Seijuri were chatting on their way back to the inn when they spotted Koyuzu crying on the road. Meanwhile, Jen walked back to his empire while carrying Yuna, so his people, who looked like deformed fish monsters, celebrated because their master introduced Yuna as his new bride. Back at the inn, Koyuzu filled Koga and Seijuri in on what had happened, so Koga decided to go and save Yuna. But Seijuri stopped him and explained that Jen was pretty much a god that even the Chuma ninjas were too scared to face. However, the musclehead wasn't hindered in the slightest by her words, as he was dead set on getting his roomie back. So she decided to join him and Koyuzu on this suicide mission, but claimed that she's going as a friend of Yuna's and not a ninja. Meanwhile, Jen was using a sus magic tool to make Yuna cosplay into several crazy outfits, which pleased him before Oboro knocked him out once again. Oboro also brought about 1 million books and said that Yuna needed to study them to learn about being a wife. Yuna made an attempt to refuse the marriage, but Oboro disappointed her by revealing that she'd never be able to leave the castle once they got married. Jen said he loved Yuna, but she replied that she'd rather torture herself by watching One Piece than marry him. So Oboro asked if she had a special relationship with Koga. Yuna talked about how she caused him nothing but trouble because of all her poltergeist tantrums, causing Oboro to explain that marrying Jen would be better for her as well as Koga, and she started to change her mind about the situation. Meanwhile, Sajiri took Koga and Koyuzu through a secret ninja tunnel which led them to Gen's kingdom. They spotted a bunch of yokai around, and Sajiri got into her Power Ranger suit, which was so cultured that Koga couldn't take his eyes off her dangling cannons. He asked about the outfit, so she explained that it gave her stealth and absorbed all attacks that were aimed at her, but a guard overheard them behind the rock, so they hid in a much tighter spot to hide from him. Koyuzu got tickled in the nose by Sajiri's hair, which caused her to sneeze, and Sajiri knocked the guard out before he could do anything. Sajiri then came up with a new plan which involved Koga distracting Gen any way that he could while she sneaks Yuna out. Following the plan, the pea-brained psychic stood outside the gates of the castle and yelled slurs at Gen while demanding he release Yuna. Eventually, he was captured by some guards and brought to Gen. He threatened to destroy Koga, but the deranged psychic still had no fear in his eyes as he relentlessly demanded the release of Yuna. Episode 8. Gen wondered what to do with Koga while Koga asked if his plan to make babies with Yuna was even possible since she's a ghost. Gen called him an ignorant fool and explained that dragons were capable of joining with other powerful races, regardless of whether they had a physical body or not. He asked if Koga had kissed Yuna, and Koga denied those claims but noticed that Gen was very concerned about Yuna's closeness with him, so he decided to capitalize on that. Koga teased Gen as he implied that he'd done every bedroom combat move other than kissing with Yuna, and this made Gen lose his mind. Meanwhile, Yuna was inside the castle, looking out through the balcony as she tried searching for Koga before Sajiri snuck in through a roof tile with Koyuzu and reunited with her. Yuna asked why they came for her despite knowing how overpowered Gen was, but Sajiri replied with one of the dumb power of friendship speeches. However, their cheerful conversation was interrupted when Oboro showed up and gave Sajiri a severe strike in her back, but Sajiri counterattacked with a barrage of kunai, which Oboro dodged. Oboro was surprised that Sajiri survived her spine-shattering attack. Oboro decided to target Koyuzu, and just as the puny Tanuki flew the coop, Oboro finished Sajiri off with several powerful sword slashes. Afterwards, Oboro brought Sajiri, who was already beat up, to Gen, who was on the verge of breaking Koga's head open. She told him that Koyuzu was still on the loose before offering up Sajiri as a potential concubine for him. She informed him that Sajiri had great spirit power, but the only power that Gen was concerned about were her huge bazookas, so he agreed. Koga was about to blow a gasket after hearing how they treated his friends like cheap street hustlers, but Sajiri warned him that he didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of beating Gen or Oboro. Yuna interrupted them by revealing she'd agree to marry Gen and do whatever he wants, so long as he releases her friends. Koga noticed that Yuna was on the verge of tears, so he went bonkers with his tease as he told Gen that he and Yuna did an exclusive on Lifen's video during bath time, and that drove the dragon god into rage mode. Gen walked towards Koga with his horrifying aura, while asking Koga if he had baths with Yuna, and Koga agreed. So Gen kicked him so hard that he hit the roof of the building, which broke his restraints as he crashed into the ground. The sight of their man getting kicked like a soccer ball left Yuna and Sajiri terrified, thinking he was a goner. But the virgin psychic got up and commanded Gen to release his friends, threatening to take them by force if he refused. Gen laughed with his guards after hearing Koga's bold threats, and he even had the audacity to talk about all the weird stuff he planned to do to Sajiri and Yuna on their wedding night. So Koga landed the most vicious gut punch imaginable, which sent Gen flying through the castle roof and into the sky. Everyone's jaw dropped to the floor, so Koga explained that he was once possessed by the ghost of a powerful spirit medium, and became a disciple that eventually gained enough strength to defeat his master. Koga proudly claimed that the only thing he couldn't punch was women, and this amazed Oboro so much that she remembered how she once swore to Gen's mother that she'd look after him and make their clan, the Ryu clan, stronger. When Koga asked Oboro to release Sajiri and Yuna, she refused and instead asked her guards to look after them while she faced him. She zoomed behind him and delivered the same sword attacks she used to defeat Sajiri, but was shocked to see that it didn't finish him off at all. She drew her sword while reintroducing herself as the god Blade, who was born from the tail of the previous dragon god, and Koga introduced himself as well before blasting a massive shockwave at her. Oboro dodged with her super speed, but Koga kept blasting shockwaves from his fists, until one of them managed to tear a piece of Oboro's clothes, revealing her medium-sized plots. Koga finally realized that she was a woman, and Oboro immediately started gaslighting him by reminding him of his promise not to hurt women, so he no longer struck back when she landed several more high-speed attacks on him with her blade. Koga started reaching his limit, but Nanko made a surprise appearance, accompanied by Yaya and Koyuzu, and stopped the sword with her bare hands. Koyuzu met up with Yuna and told her about how she escaped a swarm of guards after her before meeting up with Nanko and Yaya. Nanko and Yaya said Sajiri had previously informed them about what was going on, and that Nakai wanted to accompany them, but they refused. They explained that if Nakai uses her ability on a deity like a dragon god, it could affect everyone living in the area. Nanko suggested they go home for drinks since Jin was defeated, but Oboro refused and claimed she wouldn't let them leave because her master had chosen them to be his spouses. Koga tried to convince her that she could achieve her goal of making her clan stronger without fighting, but she was still worried about Jin, so Koga cooked up a plan to deceive him. When Jin woke up, Oboro lied to him that he destroyed Koga with a single punch like Saitama, and with the help of Koyuzu's magic, convinced him that his dragon god Riz was so powerful that it made Yuna and Sajiri ascend to heaven. The girls were worried that Jin wouldn't buy it, but he had the eye of a wild monkey, so he believed them completely. Yuna confessed to Koga that at one point she felt that marrying Jin was a better option than troubling him, so he reminded her of his promise to make her happy. Yuna then thanked everyone for coming to her aid, while Oboro decided she'd come after Koga soon. Koga and the girls returned to the inn that evening, and Nakai was pleased to welcome them. The next morning, Koga accidentally felt a pair of soft cushions on his bed, which he realized belonged to Oboro. So he screamed in surprise, and Oboro told him that she now intended to make the Ryugu clan stronger by having his child. Episode 9. Several days later, Chizaki came by the Uraji Inn, but felt a bit scared to go inside. She remembered a few days ago when she promised Yuna that she would come to the inn, and also thought about how Yuna and Koga could be having secret yoga classes every night. But eventually she gathered the resolve to go in. However, the first thing she saw when she opened the door was Oboro in her birthday suit trying to work out with Koga, causing her to scream in terror. Koga jumped away from Oboro and explained to Chisaki that it was Oboro who made all the moves, but Oboro wasn't in the mood anymore. Koyuzu came by the living room and was happy to see Chisaki, her milk buddy, who she hugged before asking to see her melons again. Yuna pulled up accompanied by Sajiri, and together they welcomed Chisaki to their home. But the arid ninja girl was too focused on the city girl outfit she was wearing, which she knew was a lot fancier than the dumpster trash that she was wearing. As they talked, Koga told him he'd be working late that day because he was trying to save up for a new uniform before heading out to his workplace. The girls had tea together, and Chisaki introduced herself officially to the girls at the inn before realizing that she was in the presence of Nanko, her favorite manga artist, who later invited Chisaki to visit her studio after a bit of glazing. Yuna then spiced things up by suggesting they have a sleepover in her room, and Koyuzu was absolutely delighted to hear that because she knew things were going to get crazy real quick. Nakai said she was going to make dinner, so Chisaki decided to help her out as a way of repaying her hospitality. Both of them cooked up a 7-star meal, and the girls' tiny brains couldn't comprehend the heavenly dish on their table. So Nakai revealed that Chisaki was skilled at making Italian dishes. Yaya was the first to dig in, and similar to how things went with Koga, her mind was blown by Chisaki's well-made fish, so she glued herself to Chisaki. A while later, they went into the open-air bath, and Chisaki instantly fell in love with the experience. They did a bit of girl talk, and Oboro asked Chisaki for advice on how to put a leash on Koga, but Chisaki couldn't answer because she was in the process of losing her mind after hearing Oboro's intentions of having a child with Koga. After the bath, Yuna, Koyuzu, and Chisaki were chilling in Yuna's room when Chisaki asked how Yuna could sleep in a futon. Yuna explained that she activated her object-touching mode when she sleeps, which allows her to lie cozy inside the futon. Yuna invited Chisaki to touch her again, so Chisaki enjoyed her smooth skin once again, but ended up unknowingly playing with her cannons. Koyuzu suggested they talk about their love interests, so Yuna asked Chisaki who she was interested in, to which Chisaki replied that she wasn't into anyone. However, Koyuzu asked her as well as the rest of the girls for a lecture on how to get a man to be crazy about her. Yuna wondered how she'd do it with her Smurf-sized body, so Koyuzu revealed that she'd gotten better at transforming into an adult, and decided to show off this ability. She transformed into a very Kirby female form in preparation for the lesson, but Chisaki and Yuna said they were pathetic virgins who had no idea how to charm men, so she changed back. Koyuzu said that Nanko taught her a bunch of things, and asked them to do some weird cosplay for her. They all agreed and gave Koyuzu a hell of a show with their cultured cosplays. Koyuzu decided to do one herself to charm Koga, but Yuna and Chisaki strongly objected to the idea. Much later in the night, Chisaki had sleeping troubles, and noticed her body felt like it had an anvil on top of it. She got scared thinking it was sleep paralysis, But when she felt Yuna's plots, she realized the dumb ghost was taking a nap on top of her. She got Yuna off her body, but realized that Yuna got comfortable like that with Koga every night, and as she was on the verge of losing her mind, Koga walked into the room. Chisaki's brain was about to explode when Koga slept in a futon beside her, and things got even more out of hand when Koga brought his face closer to hers. She tried to escape, but Yuna held her back before playing with her fun bags while in a sleepy state. She tried to escape again, but this time fell with her calcium cannons landing on Koga's face. Things got even crazier when Koga took off her armor and Koyuzu tried to capitalize on the opportunity to drink her melon juice. She quickly jumped away, but her plots landed on Koga's face instead, which woke him up. Chisaki lost her mind after realizing Koga could see her and Yuna in their natural state. But instead of doing anything weird to them, Koga covered them up with a blanket, which left her in a state of shock. As if things weren't already wild enough, Oboro showed up and started trying to make babies with Koga, but like a true Chad, Koga refused. When she asked why he rejected her, Koga replied that he only wished to do that kind of stuff with a girl he loved. So Oboro retreated and swore to make him fall in love with her. The next morning, Chisaki bid everyone farewell and left a special note to Yuna which warned her that if she kept putting Koga in sus positions at night, she'd eventually fall victim to his virgin instincts. Episode 10. Some days later, a swimming program was announced in class, and everyone celebrated except Sayuri, who had no idea what to wear for such an event. Aurora, who was sitting next to her, offered to take her for a bit of swimsuit shopping, but Sayuri refused, saying she'd wear the school's swimming gear instead. Aurora made fun of her for being a cheapskate until she agreed to go shopping with her, but she spiced things up by telling Sayuri to invite Koga as well. When Sayuri asked why, Aurora jokingly said that they needed a boy's opinion, but eventually got serious and explained that the Chuma ninjas wanted to form an alliance with the boy who defeated the dragon god. In the evening, Koga told Yuna about how every school trip he's been part of ended in some kind of calamity, but made it clear that he planned to enjoy the school's upcoming sea trip as much as he possibly could. Koga invited her to join him on the field trip, and even suggested she carry the swimsuit she got from Unimal. A bit later, Sayuri was conflicted about how to invite Koga to join herself and Aurora to do shopping, and when Koga showed up, her kunai-sized brain couldn't cook up a proper request, so she instead made up a story about how some yokai were attacking a swimsuit shop. After school the next day, they met up with Aurora, who introduced herself to Koga, and realized her scumbag partner had baited him there using a dumb yokai story, so she played along as they made their way to the swimsuit shop. When they got there, Koga was shocked to see Aurora doing some normal shopping, so she lied that they were doing undercover work. Sayuri got into the dressing room, but got cold feet about exposing herself to Koga, so she put on a prison gear instead, which made Aurora yell at her for being a coward. Aurora got her changed into a proper swimsuit, and when she showed it to Koga, he barely stopped himself from gawking at her cannons as he complimented her good looks. However, Aurora wasn't satisfied with the swimsuit, because she claimed that Sayuri needed to put on some cultured swimsuits, so they both came out of the changing room wearing some extremely thin-fibrized swimsuits, which Koga confessed was too much. Sayuri told Aurora that she'd used the school swimsuit for the trip, explaining that her body was made for combat, so girly stuff wouldn't look good on her. Aurora finally snapped and played with Sayuri's oversized melons to point out how womanly she was, but they both tripped and fell. Koga heard their screams and rushed into the dressing room, only to see them in the most sus position imaginable, and before he could explain himself, they chased him away with a barrage of kunai. As the three of them walked back that evening, Koga told Sayuri that she didn't have to bait him using a goofy story because he'd have joined her to do shopping even if she asked directly. Sayuri apologized for underestimating his simp levels, and Aurora said Koga was a nice guy before trolling both of them. A while later, Sayuri put on the swimsuit of her choice, which was the one that Koga complimented, and she was satisfied with her decision. On the day of the school trip, Yuna and Chisaki were chatting inside the bus when Chisaki's longtime friend, Siri, saw the floating book. Chisaki explained that there was a ghost with her, so Siri introduced herself to Yuna before a bunch of ninrods from their class came by to bother them. Siri scared them off while Koga showed Yuna the beautiful sea through the window. At the beach, Aurora told Sayuri about a yokai that appeared around that area recently and suggested that they do some investigation. Koga and the gang met up with them shortly, and the girls had fun at the pool while Koga and Seda watched. It didn't take long before an underwater yokai stole Chisaki's swimsuit and used its tentacles to attack the girls in a way that looked like a scene from a cultured film. Aurora identified the monster as a hydra eel, and Sayuri chopped off its tentacles several times, but it kept growing back, so Sayuri asked how to defeat it. Aurora explained that they'd have to get to the bottom of the sea to strike its body, so Koga decided to dive into the sea while Yuna retrieved everyone's swimsuits. He swam faster than Aquaman to the bottom of the sea where he saw the yokei's body and destroyed it with the nastiest spirit punch. Later that evening, the class clowns made fun of Chisaki and Siri for glazing Koga, so they met up with the rest of the girls, and Chisaki told them she wants to make her classmates believe that Koga's a powerful psychic. She decided that they should do it at an event called a Test of Courage, which the students would engage in that night. Chisaki's plan involved the ninja girls summoning a monster during the event, and Koga would pose as Superman and publicly defeat the beast. Everyone agreed to help her, but Chisaki's plan took a sudden hit when Koga was paired with her instead of a random girl in her class. Chisaki realized that she could use the pair behind them as witnesses, so she tried to stall by faking a leg injury, but Koga decided to carry her on his back. They met up with Yuna, who was somehow scared of the dark, and they sat by a nearby bench, where Chisaki worried that her plan would fail. The next pair showed up, which gave Chisaki a bit more faith in her plan working out, so she waited for the ninja girls to summon the monster. Aurora summoned her family's most powerful Shikigami, and Sujiri tried to fight it, but got blown away like trash. She landed in a sus position on top of Koga and believed he was at fault, so she pierced a hole in his skull once again. Suddenly, a giant monster appeared and made a pair of goofballs that had to soil themselves. But when he charged at them with his huge teeth, Koga jumped in and took the hit. Chisaki, Yuna, and the ninja girls arrived at the scene and got worried when they saw the monster try to chew on Koga's arm like a donut. However, Koga was more jacked than Dwayne Johnson, so the beast's teeth started chattering, which made it jump away in fear of Koga. Koga asked the douchebags if they were responsible for waking up the monster, and they admitted it, so he went on his knees and apologized to the beast. He made the douchebags apologize along with him, so the girls were surprised that their superhero ended up being a super weasel. The monster assessed Koga's strength and realized that fighting him was nothing but the quickest path to meeting its maker, so it chose to vanish instead. The duo thanked Koga for saving them, and the girls were impressed that he managed to pull off a save without fighting. The girls told Koga about their plan on the way back, but Koga said he didn't mind that people didn't believe in him, and that he was alright so long as he had Chisaki on his side. His overpowered riz had Chisaki shivering in embarrassment, and she tried to walk towards him but slipped. Koga saved her from falling but accidentally grabbed her tanks, making everyone go bonkers before he apologized. Later that evening, the girls enjoyed a refreshing bath at the hotel's hot springs and met up with Koga and Sato afterwards. Sato suggested he and Koga hang out in the girls' room, but Siri hated the idea. However, Yuna said that having boys sneak in to have fun with her friends was one of her weird fantasies, so they agreed and invited the guys over, hoping that it would maybe help Yuna with her ascension problems. Some hours later, the girls were playing with Pokemon cards and Yuna wondered why Koga wasn't there yet. So Siri explained that it would be impossible for the guys to get into their room because it was heavily guarded by teachers. Suddenly, Koga showed up at their window carrying an unconscious Sato and explained to the shocked audience that he was once possessed by a rock climber who was practically as talented as Spider Monkey, so he got really good climbing stuff. After playing around for a while, they heard a teacher coming by to check on them, so they hid under the futons, putting Koga in a position where he was getting smushed by the amazing cushions of Chisaki, Sajiri, and Yuna. Yuna got rattled and tried to get away, but Koga held on to her so she wouldn't blow their cover. She got overwhelmed with embarrassment and caused a huge mess with her poltergeist powers, which distracted the teacher long enough for Koga to escape with Sato. The next day, Yuna and Koga were staring at some eels in a nearby aquarium when a classmate showed up to tell him that he'd asked Chisaki to the dance. Yuna overheard and tried asking Koga to be her partner, but couldn't muster the courage to do it. That evening, Koga realized what Yuna wanted, so during the dance, he asked Yuna to partner with him. They danced in front of the campfire, and Yuna told Koga she was worried about his reputation because it looked like he was dancing by himself like a meth addict, but Koga said he was alright because he could see her. A few days later, Oboro walked into the living room to see Koga, but he was busy studying for the upcoming final exams alongside Sajiri and Yaya. Oboro started rubbing the weapons of destruction on her chest on Koga, while telling him to focus on his studies. Meanwhile, Nikai left the responsibility of making study snacks for Yuna, since she had to study for her finals as well in a separate room as the others. At the same time, Oboro met up with Koyuzu in a separate room and asked her to make a love potion so she could get Koga to give her private workout sessions. The study group got distracted again when Nanko pulled up wearing very thin clothes while enjoying a popsicle as a way of staying chill in the heat of summer. When she started acting crazy with the popsicle, Sagiri chased her out once again. Yuna prepared some shade dice for the study group, and Oboro offered to serve the shade dice to them so she could put her love potion on Koga's snack. She was instructed by Koyuzu to look into Koga's eyes after he eats it. Unfortunately, on her way to the living room, she met Nanko, who unknowingly shuffled the plates of shaved ice. Oboro got to the living room, but had no idea which shaved ice serving was for Koga, so she gave him a random one. She made eye contact as instructed, but he didn't get all lovey-dovey with her at all. After Oboro left, Sajiri noticed her body was reacting weirdly when she stared at Koga, so she tried to get away from him. Sajiri realized that she had feelings for him and tried getting him out of her mind, but he checked her temperature by touching her head, and this made her get violent with him again. She decided to show Koga her girly side, so acted like the most desperate simp imaginable, which made Koga call her a cute girl. In reaction, she hugged him with her cannons planted on his face, and this made Yuna, who was watching by the door, lose her mind. Oboro gave Yuna a bit of commentary to the madness she was witnessing as she explained that it was the effect of a love potion, and Sajiri eventually regained her senses when the rest of the crew came into the living room. Sometime after, Koga went to apologize to Sajiri in her bedroom, but she didn't answer the door because she was drowning in shame. Episode 12. Some days later, Koyuzu informed everyone that she was going for a sleepover at Shizaki's house, and Saji, Yaya, and Nakai revealed that they all had important trips of their own to attend, so Koga, Yuna, Oboro, and Nanko said their goodbyes to them. Nanko got a call from her editor, so she begged them to help with her manuscript because she was struggling with a chapter of her manga for the billionth time. Eventually, they finished up the manuscript, so she took them to a beach in Okinawa to celebrate beating another deadline crunch. Koga and Yumin noticed Nanko's fancy vacation house at the beach. Oboro arrived and immediately showed off her crazy swimsuit, which she claimed was picked out by Nanko, but they made her put on a less revealing swimsuit before Nanko asked Koga for a massage. As Koga massaged her body with sun oil, Nanko made weird noises, so Oboro decided that Koga would give her a massage as well when he finishes with Nanko. Koga massaged Oboro's back in the same manner, and she enjoyed it so much that she asked him to massage her front as well. Koga noticed that Yuna was worried about something, so Nanko pointed out that Yuna wanted a massage as well. The simp agreed, but when he proceeded, Yuna made sus noises that distracted them, leading to Koga getting a handful of her milk packs. Yuna got embarrassed and sent Koga flying with her poltergeist powers as usual. While in midair, Koga saw a strange ghost girl at the nearby cape. He told the girls about that evening, and Nanko revealed to him that the ghost he saw was part of a love story that was more tragic than the Titanic. She narrated how the girl tried to elope with the man of her dreams, but the guy ended up dying in an accident while trying to meet her, so she jumped off the cape in order to be with him on the other side. Yuna felt sad after hearing that story, but Koga let his hero complex take over as he decided to help out the cape's ghost girl no matter what. Koga and Yuna met up with her at the cape and introduced themselves, so she introduced herself as Amy. Yuna asked about the boyfriend, so Amy showed them a wimpy spirit on the street below and introduced him as her boyfriend, Yasu. She said she couldn't go meet him because she was bound to that area, but wished to learn how to fly like Yuna so she could go see him. Afterwards, Koga and Yuna then met up with Yasu and asked if he was bound to his area as well. Yasu said he wasn't bound to his region, but he was scared because he felt that Amy was mad at him. He narrated how he slipped off the road on his way to elope with Amy and how she died after jumping into the river to save him. He said he felt responsible for her death and Koga deduced that it was his mind that was tying him to that bridge. Yasu told them it was impossible for him to apologize to her because he couldn't even look her in the eye after that incident. As they walked back to Nanko's beach house, Koga wondered if bringing them together was the right call, but Yuna said that both Amy and Yasu were lonely and needed encouragement to find happiness. Koga agreed and decided to do as much for them as he could. Later that night, they met Yasu again, and Koga told him they'd use forced ascension on Amy so she wouldn't turn into an evil spirit. As they walked back, Yasu panicked and remembered the good times he had with his girl. A while later, they met Amy again and told her that they threatened her man with fake news of her forced ascension. Amy thought it didn't work, but Yasu finally grew some marbles as he came from behind a tree to see her. He tried to hug her, but Amy beat him up while raining insults on him. Eventually, they embraced and said romantic words to each other as they ascended together. Yuna was happy about how things turned out, but Koga suddenly asked her to tell him about her life as a human. Yuna said she didn't remember anything from her life before the Irajien, and that she was given the name Yuna by Nakai. Koga said he suspected as much because she never talked about her past life, which was unlike every other ghost he'd encountered. Yuna said she was happy with her current life because she had many friends, implying that she didn't have any lingering regrets. The next morning, Koga had a bad dream where Yuna turned into an evil spirit, and accidentally grabbed Yuna's plot as he woke up, which led to him getting tossed in the water once again. After Yuna retrieved him from the water, she confessed that she enjoyed having rough mornings with him, and the two of them played around at the beach for several hours. Back at the inn, the girls had returned from their trips, and they were having a refreshing bath while talking about their wild experiences during their travels. All of a sudden, Koga came flying into the hot spring, which made Sejuri beat him up with her deadly weapons again. When he got tossed outside the bath, Koga told Yuna that he didn't hate having rough mornings with the girls after all. Would you live with ghosts if you're paid to, or would their melons be enough motivation for you? Comment your favorite waifu, and if you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.